The Four Absolutes of the Oxford Group. Absolute Love. Part 1. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. We are digging into the last absolute covered in the book, What is the Oxford Group? Written by a layman with a pen, is the official author. And I'm really looking forward to digging into this final absolute, this final chapter of the Four Absolutes that it talks about in here. And this one might take more than 2 parts. I'm not sure, but I can tell you, I was only able to actually get into review a page and a half of this one before I realized I was going to be getting over the 45-minute mark, probably closer to the hour mark already. Usually I read half of, I've been reading half, 3 or 4 pages, then we'll review those and go through it. This, I'm only going to have the time today to really cover it thoroughly to do a page and a half. Now that tells you just how much content is in this just page and a half. So I'm really looking forward to it. So let's go ahead and dig in. So here we go. This is Absolute Love of the last of the Four Absolutes in the book, What is the Oxford Group? Here we go. 4. Absolute love. If I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And if I have the gift of prophecy and know all the mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And if I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and if I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profiteth me nothing. 1 Corinthians 8, 1-3. By 2 wings a man is lifted up from things earthly, namely by simplicity and purity. Simplicity ought to be in our intentions, purity in our affections. Simplicity doth tend towards God. Purity doth apprehend, and as it were, taste him. Thomas A. Kemper. Absolute love. In loving thou doest well. In passion not, wherein true love consists not. Love refines the thoughts, the heart enlarges, hath its seat in reason, is judicious, and is the scale by which to heavenly love thou mayest ascend. John Milton. Absolute love is the motive power for absolute honesty, purity, and unselfishness. We can have none of those qualities in their absolute without absolute love. If we have absolute love for God, we have all those qualities for the world. We can be paragons of righteousness, but if we have not love, we are spiritually lifeless. Love begets love, and our active love today will go on spreading over life into the far future like the circles upon a lake when we throw in a stone. Love uplifts us more than any other quality. It is the color in the pattern of earthly existence. To every sensible, thinking man and woman, the life of Christ on earth should be irrefutable proof that his absolute love for mankind was and is an undying quality that even thousands of years cannot dim. That love which Christ showed us whilst he walked in flesh among men has gone on for nearly 2,000 years, never getting out of date or ineffective. People are gradually realizing that mind is more important than and can be as substantial in its effect as matter. How much more important and real in its effects than either is love. Mind, in many cases, is dependent on bodily condition. An enfeebled body inducing a enfeebled mind. Absolute Christ love is not dependent on any conditions. It needs no vast intellect or robust physical health to realize and use its illimitable powers. It is normal and practical, giving out and building up, and is not an exclusive gift for those of one type of individual more than another. It is the one indispensable part of existence that all the wealth there is or ever has been cannot buy. It helps those upon whom sorrow has suddenly cast a dark shadow, which seems can never be lifted, to get a right viewpoint for their future happiness. The continually troubled to realize that their eyes are focused on the side of life which inevitably leads to no man's land of utter despair, and turns their attention to the infinite possibilities of a future which has no one to say nay to them but God alone. Absolute love transcends everything. It envelops the world, but the world will not see it. Absolute love is the language of God in truth, in perfection. The realization that God loves us takes away all fears, doubts, regrets, and remorse, shame of the past, dread of the future. Such love passeth all understanding, bringing in its train infinite patience with man, enduring courage in life, and complete trust in Christ. If we could love God with a fraction of the love God has for us, our eyes would be open to a new vision, not only for ourselves, but for all mankind. Now, again, that was a page and a half. Now, I am excited to go through this with you. It's going to be pretty much line by line because it is just got so much depth and weight to literally every single sentence and every single concept that it brought up in just those few short paragraphs. And even the quotes that it started with were absolutely incredible. I loved the 1 Corinthians quote, 8:1-3, just telling us the vitality of and the importance of having love in our hearts, right? We could prophesy, we could do righteous acts, we can speak. I don't remember what the first one was, excuse me, but we can take all of these actions and do all of the right things by external standards. But if we do it without love, it is pointless. Because if it's not love, then it is selfish. Right? If it is not love, then it is selfish. And that is what it's talking about there. You could, by all external accounts, a person could do everything right. But if it doesn't come from a place of love, then they have done nothing. Which really shows how crucial of an understanding this is. And then the next quote was from Thomas A. Kempis. I'd never heard of him before, but he was a 14th century and 14th to 15th century author who wrote a book called The Imitation of Christ. And it's a very popular Catholic daily devotional from what the internet told me. To be fair, I didn't cross-check that with any of the Catholics that I know. And then the last quote is probably the most... Oh, that's not true. Is a very popular quote, I'm sure, that many will know, by John Milton, who wrote Paradise Lost. And it's actually from Paradise Lost, book 8 in Paradise Lost. I absolutely loved that. It was a beautiful quote. It speaks about true love and not just passionate lust or this physical craving for another human being. This is the truest sense of love, how it's fostered in the heart and it grows and it's seated in logic and reason. And it was a great quote, and gives me more motivation to put Paradise Lost on my to read, which I have a feeling will be quite the endeavor should I ever get to that. But just the 3 opening quotes, absolutely great. And just really kind of sets up the framework for what we're going to be talking about with this absolute love topic. Like I said, this chapter is 8.5 pages long in this book. And we're only going to be talking about the first 3 paragraphs. I think 3. 1, 2, three. Yeah, the first three paragraphs. So it's quite a crucial absolute at the end of the day. And the first line sums up why. This first line is just so crucial. I think it was absolute unselfishness was also carried a lot of weight in the first line and first paragraph. But this first line of absolute love is the motive power for absolute honesty, purity, and unselfishness. We can have none of these qualities in their absolute without absolute love. So it's reflecting back into that First Corinthians quote, right? Where it's talking about if you don't have love, everything's done for naught. You're just speaking your clanging cymbal. I thought that was pretty funny to me. But that quote, absolute love is the motive power for absolute honesty, purity, and unselfishness. It's very interesting to me that this is put as the fourth absolute out of the absolutes. Like we've already done the readings for absolute honesty. We've done absolute purity. We've done absolute unselfishness. And so this last one out of the four absolutes, absolute love, seems to be the most important one. And without this one, you can't even have the first three anyway, which I think it's interesting that they put it at the end, right? But this one is pivotal to manifest absolute honesty, absolute unselfishness, absolute purity. Without this one, you can't actually have the other three. So we can't practice the rest of them. So the rest are outgrowths of absolute love. There are different implementations of absolute love, right? So without absolute love, you can be honest to a certain extent. You can be pure to a certain extent. You can be unselfish to a certain extent. But the truest sense of all of these things comes from a place of absolute love. And those are the things that drive them and fuel them, right? So it gives at least some direction as to how to practice these things, right? So as we're going through these, I don't know if I've said it very much during these last 7 or 8 weeks, but it's not lost on me that practicing absolute honesty in our lives is incredibly difficult. It's not lost on me that practicing absolute purity in our lives is absolutely difficult. Is near impossible. I mean, it talked about that in the actual chapter. Or practicing absolute unselfishness is hard to discern when all you've been is selfish your whole life. You don't even know truly how selfish you are until you really start trying to practice this thing, right? So how do you do that? These absolutes are principles that are quite overwhelming when we first try to start practicing them, right? So where does the actual power to practice those come from, right? Valid question. Well, it tells us here, right? It's telling us to do those other three absolutes, we have to have the fourth one, which is absolute love. And then absolute honesty, purity, and unselfishness will be more or come more naturally and more honestly is the way I can say it, from a place of actual love, right? We won't be just faking it till we make it anymore. When you actually are practicing these principles from a place of absolute honesty, absolute love, that is the only true way to be absolutely unselfish, right? We can practice unselfishness in action and we can practice new thoughts, right? But we have to for it to actually take the fullest effect, it has to come from a change of heart. And it has to be a change of heart based around absolute love. When we come from love, absolute unselfishness is a genuine act of service with no expectation of return. Talked about that. When we're absolutely honest, it will be done with tact and consideration for the other person because we're coming from a place of love and a desire to be constructive to another person, not tear them down like it said in that absolute honesty reading, right? To be absolutely pure with other people, with our intentions, with our thoughts, with our actions, to the utmost moral standard we can. That all truly comes from absolute love we hold in our hearts. So now that we know that those three are fueled in the most effective way, those three are practiced, it is fueled by absolute love, right? So we can have some direction on how those get implemented, where we gain the power from them. But then it begs the next question. So where does absolute love come from? Where can we get this ability to practice absolute love in its most pure, true, and authentic way? Where do we get that from? Well, I think it's the third sentence or second sentence in that paragraph. If we have absolute love for God, we have all those qualities for the world. We can be paragons of righteousness, but if we have not love, we are spiritually lifeless. And so there we go again, right? We're referencing that Corinthians quote. So absolute love and the strength and the power that comes from absolute love is actually brought about through an absolute love to the God of our understanding. This is why practicing and having a higher power is just so crucial. If you believe that you are the end all be all, you're at the top of the pyramid, you are the most important thing in the room everywhere you go, and the world should be revolving around you, you're going to have a bad time. And this will not be made available to you. This strength and the power and the freedom that comes from experiencing a joy of absolute love and acceptance from a God of your understanding that allows you to actually transfer that through yourself to other people. You're robbing yourself of that experience when you're putting yourself as the egotistical center of the world. When you believe that you're the apex of everything that could happen, the acme of human development, human progress, right? Like it's so crucial to have something bigger than you. And I say it like that for the maybe agnostically oriented or the atheist, because you can still be of service to something greater than yourself. You can still see the beauty and the love of society and humanity without the nihilistic perspective, right? The desire to see growth and love instituted into the world can be something you can hold on to. It might be a little bit more difficult than somebody who has a more typically religious spiritual belief involving maybe a deity or an energy or a source or a power or whatever it might be, right? It's so important, though, to have something that you're putting yourself in service to, and to have something that you can be absolutely loving towards, right? Because from there sprouts all the rest. And it starts with our love of the God of our understanding, from our higher power. If we can practice that, the rest of the absolutes will just naturally manifest themselves into our lives towards other people. But you have to start with absolute love towards the God of your understanding. That's where it starts to really dig roots into your life and really put yourself in a place to be able to grow and take yourself out of this egocentric lifestyle you've been living and to practice some genuine love and honesty and purity and unselfishness towards your fellow man. Right? And this brings up a really important point that I wanted to highlight about spirituality, right? Because I believe spirituality doesn't necessarily involve God. I believe there's God of your understanding, there's spirituality, there's religion. Spirituality is what spirituality is acting in a way that morally aligns to something they are in service to. Right? So an atheist can act spiritually because they believe it's best to serve society and the world to be honest, loving, whatever it is, and they embody that in their lives, right? If you have a Christian denomination, you embody the precepts and principles that Jesus has laid down, right? And pick a religion, anything like that, or spirituality, or those who love nature or the universe or source or wherever it is that you are in your journey, right? Whatever you believe will serve that best and most effectively is what you bring into your life, and that is a spiritual practice, right? So this was an important part of my own personal journey with spirituality and in recovery from substance use and every other thing that can occur. Something I needed to ask myself, that I would encourage anyone who hears this to ask themselves, is how do you view your God? What do you believe about your God? And these are big questions. I know these aren't little things, right? Where you ask them and then you get an immediate answer perchance, but it shapes your worldview. It shapes your conduct, your thinking, and the beliefs you hold in your heart. You can tell a lot about yourself by what you think about God, by what you think about that higher power you have, by what you think about this universe you have, right? Because what you think about that will, yes, be incorporated into your life in a belief structure, right? This is a critically important piece of living a virtuous, spiritual, righteous life for the God of your understanding, whatever you're in service to. Right? This directly impacts how loving you can be. I struggled with this very, very badly. And you can see people that struggle with it too, to be completely honest with you. A lot of people, you can tell by the way they view the world what they believe about their God. And not what, and I want to also say, there's what people say they believe about their God, but what they actually believe. Right? I can tell you a multitude of things that I believe about God, but my actual view of the world and my behavior in the world towards my fellow man will show what I actually believe. Not what I want to believe, not what I think you want to hear that I believe, but what I actually believe, right? Now that can be kind of scary for some people. That can be a little intimidating for some people, right? But that's what this first paragraph is really getting to. This practice of absolute love is coming from a absolute love for the God of your understanding. So if you believe your God is loving and kind and wants the best for you, but he will allow you to have the life that you choose to live, you will reflect that, right? That's what the concept of self-will is, right? Is God would love to have a path for us laid out, but the reality of it is we choose whether we want to align with that or not. And then we can stray as far away as we'd like. I've strayed quite far myself. And it's a painful life. And then I get returned back to following a God-centered life. And when I did that, my worldview changed, right? So if you have absolute love for your God, you will have absolute love for all. If God is loving, you will be loving. If God is accepting, you will be accepting. If God is honest and true, you will be honest and true, right? So it says in that first paragraph, love begets love, right? And really, this principle can be expanded to like begets like, right? If you have this view of your God as negative, damning, condemning, evil, whatever, you'll bring that into your perspective and your perception of the world and reality. And then you will function from that place, and it will be miserable. It will be painful. It will be a struggle for you if that is how you conduct yourself. You know, James Allen talks about it a lot in a lot of his books. Yeah, you reap what you sow. Right? This is the same concept as how you view your God. You will embody and act out in the world, right? Anger begets anger. Jealousy begets jealousy. Love begets love. If you believe and truly embrace the idea that your God is a loving God and all of these qualities that would help be constructive and build a world and encourage you to develop yourself and to better the world, then that is how you are going to be as you interact with other people, right? We talked last week about what we worship, we embody in our thinking and our behavior. And we put a lot of the wrong things up there. But if you put a loving God as what you worship, you will bring that loving nature into your life. If you bring a warring God into your into the place of worship, that spot you worship, you will bring a warring personality. You'll be in constant conflict with people. You'll be doing these things, right? If you bring a judgmental, damning God into your life, you will be judgmental and damning to others. It's immediately reflective. So you have to take an honest appraisal and inventory of what you believe is God to you, what you worship, and what the qualities that God has. This isn't always fun. This can be quite an uncomfortable conversation, and I imagine some that hear this will want to disregard it. But I can promise you, from my own personal experience, that this is the absolute truth. And if you want to be the most effective person in this world, find a way to see a loving God in your life. Because it is there. That has been my personal experience. It is there. That God is there and he is loving. And I believe it's the last sentence of this first paragraph here. Let me check. Yes. Love uplifts us more than any other quality. It is the color and the pattern of earthly existence. And this is a very, very important thing to realize. What is the most enduring and lasting thing in this world, effect in this world, actions in this world? They're loving actions. Love is the most powerful emotion and feeling. It is the most constructive emotion as well. Because if you're coming from love, you'll never want to tear someone apart or tear someone down. They never want to belittle and degrade somebody out of jealousy and envy or hatred, right? If you're coming from a place of love, all you will want to do is build yourself and help others build themselves. Love is the place of creation. Love is the place of joy and progress. Right? And it conquers all other emotions. right? And is the most everlasting thing that reverberates through time is love. Though other emotions or actions, feelings might seem to win in a moment, right? Like anger takes control and you feel powerful, right? Even violence, people will hold on to because it makes them feel like they have some sort of a control over this world, right? So horrible things can be done that makes it seem like love does not win. But that energy of love does not dissipate because a person is gone, does not dissipate because someone does not receive it, does not dissipate because someone took an action out of anger and frustration and self-pity. Right? Love is the most powerful, the most everlasting, and it's always been here. It will always be here. And it's always available for us to grab into, right? It will continue to inspire. It will continue to educate. It will continue to influence. It's what love is what motivates us to be truly better. Some people believe that it's that feeling of less than that really pushes us forward. And that can, in some instances, until you experience love in a way that you want to share it and give and help and be of service to those around you, that is the most powerful motivating force there can be. When you want to improve yourself, to share a message of love and grace with another human being, and you want to make sure you're in the best possible position to do so, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, education-wise, location-wise, you will push yourself to be that. Not because you want it and you want to say you're that, but because it is the most effective thing you could do to help other people. I didn't know that for a long time. I didn't even realize that love is the truest source of motivation. Anything else is just to be better than the next. Love is to make better the next. I didn't know that. So now that brings us to the end of the first paragraph. We're already 32 minutes into this thing. So it's a powerful, powerful paragraph to open up with. This absolute love, this virtue, this principle is huge. So let's go and we'll get into the next one. And it brings up the example of Jesus and the impact that Jesus Christ has had on this world, that it's inspired nations and it's inspired people, and the selfless acts and the acts of love that Jesus is exemplified in his life as recorded in the Bible has withstood the test of time for 2,000 years. How many wars have been fought in that time? How many people have been, how many countries have changed hands? How many empires have risen and died in the time that Jesus has lived? And his love and his impact has reverberated throughout these ages. Right? There are teachers that have occurred in history that teach from this place of absolute love. And guess what? We still are learning from them. Jesus being the most iconic one of them all. He still continues to inspire. He still continues to teach. He still continues to foster growth and aspiration to something better, to something more, to bring out the divinity within each one of us, this connection we share between each other. These acts of love have fostered so much good, and also distorted, can cause a lot of pain and suffering when people want to use them for selfish reasons. But the good that has occurred from a practice of Christian principle and the principles as laid down from Jesus Christ, example, the Sermon on the Mount. Like, these are livable principles, whether you believe Jesus was God or not, whether you believe in any deity or whether you just are spiritual or you just want the betterment of society. Behaving in those ways will be the most beneficial and effective way to conduct yourself, regardless of what belief structure you have. That is how everlasting truth is, and how everlasting absolute love is. Because it will always be true that to follow the Beatitudes is the best way to live. Whether we forget that, we destroy ourselves as a society, or not, the Beatitudes will always be the best way for a human being to live. Always. Jesus was probably the most true example in the context of this book, and I would say the most true example in history of absolute love. And his life, and the example of his life and the way he conducted himself, and the story that's associated with him is still felt today, which says something, I believe, about that man. And regardless of what you think happened or didn't happen, or what was true and what was not true, or his divinity, or if he was God or not God, there's a lot of people out there arguing this, but what you cannot really discard is the fact that he has had an overwhelmingly positive influence on so many people for a very long time. Love is more powerful than so many things. It's even more powerful than the mind and than the body, right? Love, love will always exist and survive, whether we know it or not. So, and then it goes into this a little bit more about that specifically, how the powerful love is, that it's more powerful than mind and body. Absolute Christ love is not dependent on any conditions. It's not dependent on any conditions. Love that. It needs no vast intellect or robust physical health to realize and use its illimitable power. Now, I looked up illimitable. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it does mean vast or infinite. Now, that understanding, or that quality of love that they pointed out here, was crucial, right? For a lot of other things that people idealize or think people value, you have to have a certain level of intellect. You have to have a certain physical strength or prowess. You have to have you have to be a certain thing. There's additional conditions you have to satisfy to actually embody this thing, to embody that emotion, to embody that direction, right? Love is not that way. Love is available for everybody, anywhere, to use, to get in touch with, to make contact with, to bring into themselves, to then practice and help other people. You do not have to be of a certain denomination. You do not have to be of a certain demographic, a certain nation, or a certain location, or have a certain physical strength, or have a certain intellectual capacity. Anyone, anywhere, can practice absolute love, regardless of their circumstance, health, intelligence, upbringing, their current circumstance. It doesn't matter. It's always there and available, and to tap into and connect to the power that it gives you, right? There's this strength in absolute love that allows you to actually walk through so many barriers and so many different aspects of life that you didn't even know you needed the help to get through, or that it even was possible to get through. And that power is always available to everybody at any time, if you're just willing to reach out for it. It is the one indispensable part of existence that all wealth there is or ever has been cannot buy. I love that they put that in there, because it is a critical reminder. That is such a positive statement. Not only do you not need anything to have love, but there's nothing you can do to buy it. You can buy affection. You could buy sex. You can buy material possessions. You can buy land. You can buy buildings. You can amass a vast wealth that has never been seen before and will never be seen again, but you cannot buy love. It is not for purchase. It cannot be bought. It cannot be stolen. You cannot manipulate it. By no selfish worldly means can you attain it. You have to just practice it towards a God of your understanding, and it will be received back tenfold, hundredfold, millionfold, and it will be displayed in acts of love towards others. It can only come from God. And that is the only way. That hole in the soul that so many of us try to fill with drugs and alcohol and whatever it is, gambling, money, sex, distraction, social media, fame, fortune, whatever it is. We have this crippling hole that can only be filled by the truest, purest sense and form of love that is given to us from the God of our understanding, from that connection to a power greater than ourselves. It's absolutely incredible. And I didn't realize that. I tried to do everything I could to just manipulate it and bring it into and to attain it. Right? I selfishly was trying to get it for my own considerations and from other people. I thought I had to just take it from this world. But I never could. It never worked that way. I had to go through the pain I needed to go through before I became willing to just allow God to be in my life, to find a love and a recognition of God that allowed me to experience that absolute love and acceptance that I was looking for the entire time. And that's the only place I've ever found peace and contentment, joy, true love. Was through that connection to a God of my understanding, through that connection to a higher power. And that power has been demonstrated in my life. And I'm going to read how it manifests and how they reference it. It is the one indispensable part of existence that all the wealth there is or ever has been cannot buy. It helps those upon whom sorrow has suddenly cast a dark shadow, which seems can never be lifted, to get a right viewpoint for their future happiness. The continually troubled to realize that their eyes are focused on the side of life which inevitably leads to the no man's land of utter despair, and turns their attention to the infinite possibilities of a future which has no one to say nay to them but God alone. The power that comes from a experience of absolute love is incredible. And I wish I had more time on this podcast to actually talk about it. But even in my recovery, I was trying to self-will my recovery. I was trying to do it without this power greater than myself. I was still this selfish, self-centered person. I was just taking the actions in a hollow way. I was really thinking that I could just crowbar this sense of joy into my life if I just managed well. And it didn't work that way. I became even more desolate and more miserable. I became one of those despairing people that I was just talking about in that reading. And when I had this encounter with this absolute love, with a God that I didn't want to believe in, and I adamantly did not want to believe in, with this source, this energy, this universe, this God of my understanding, this energy of love, this power of love. It changed absolutely everything. It took a couple of years for me to get to a point where I could even accept that. But I had to fail on my own before I was willing to do it. I could be I was in a very desperate situation, and I was that way without drugs and alcohol. I'd been away from it for 2 or so years. I hit another, what people would call, spiritual bottom, where I truly realized that no matter what I did, I could only do so much. I was a limited, fallible human being. And I needed something more. I found that. I didn't even think it was available to a guy like me, but it was. Those were some... That was a very intense experience for me. To finally come to terms with the fact that I was not God, and there was something greater than me. Now, let's get to this last paragraph. This is already going to be a long one, but some of the properties of the love I experienced are actually in this next paragraph. Absolute love transcends everything. It envelops the world, but the world cannot see it. Absolute love is the language of God in truth, in perfection, right? Love, it's telling us that love is this energy that just exists. It's everywhere. It's all around us, right? It's the way God is trying to reach out to us. It's the way we're trying to connect to each other. It's this ever-present source of energy that we can connect to, but we do not see it. It's all around us. We fail to realize it, though. We fail to actually embrace it until, well, at least in my experience, I landed in so much pain, I became willing to acknowledge it. I became willing to try something different. And I first experienced it through other people. This sense of absolute acceptance, this absolute love, these absolute unselfish people, these absolute honest people, these absolutely pure people. These were people practicing absolute love and were directing it towards me. And those things would sustain me for a little while. And then I got connected to a God of my understanding. I got a spiritual practice of love and life and living, and to be a part of this whole thing. And I had what was called a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience. And then I became so aware of how enveloping it is, of how all-encompassing it is. And this is how God, that whatever it is, source, universe, mother nature, energy, society, really, makes its presence known. Goodness makes its presence known. Love is the language of God. And they are also kind of alluding to in that reading that God is love, God is truth, and God is perfection. Absolute love, that energy of love, is how God lets his presence be known. And what that does for us, which is just absolutely amazing. Again, this was written in 1930s, early 30s. I think it was actually published in 1934. So this was probably written in the first years of 1930. And just the fact that it was written then, and it's these human conditions have been human conditions as long as humans have been around, because they're able to write about things I experienced 90 years later. And this practice was still applicable for me, because what they said, this realization of God does is as follows. The realization that God loves us takes away all fears, doubts, regret and remorse, shame of the past, dread of the future. Now, this is what so many people are looking for. They need a solution to one of those things, whether it's fear or doubt, whether it's regret and remorse, shame of your past, or dread of the future. Most people are looking for relief from all of those things, because when it goes on up here, there is a lot of pain associated with those, because we think we have to fix it. And you can't fix the future. It's not here yet. You can't fix the past. It's already gone. You have these crippling fears you can't seem to muster up the strength to walk through, and you doubt yourself at every step, and you regret and have so much remorse for what you've done and where you are in the world. It's immobilizing. No wonder we reach for pleasure. No wonder we reach for these physically gratifying things or distractions, whatever it might be. No wonder we binge watch Netflix. No wonder we binge watch social media and scroll with such enthusiasm. Such fury. Really, we pursue these things, right? We try to fill and distract and ignore and numb these emotions, right? We want a solution, and then they're telling us what it is. When we realize the love of God, this absolute love, all of these things go away. This is the solution. Some in 12-step might understand that, or recognize that term, right? God, this absolute love, removes from us all of these things that we have been struggling and fighting against for years upon years upon years, with failure after failure after failure, with a sense of despair and worthlessness and hopelessness and helplessness instilled now in our souls. When we come into contact and have that spiritual experience, whatever that looks like for you, that stuff just goes away. You realize how small that was. You realize your vain attempts to actually combat them were pointless. They were never yours to fight. They were never yours to take away. God removes them. This experience with absolute love removes them from us. It does what we could not do for ourselves, they say. The best we could ever do was find a temporary reprieve. But this experience with absolute love gets rid of them entirely. That is what happened to me. And that is what's happened to so many others I've observed go through this process. But also, I will say, the more I remember and make a conscious effort to bring this love and this God into my life, the more those stay away. The less time I have fretting and worrying and regretful. So it's on me to continue to bring this into my life on a daily basis. It's not a one and done thing. You have to continue to maintain this spiritual condition that we've been blessed with the opportunity to gain access to, that we didn't even know was there. And this is something that so many people in this world are looking for, especially right now, especially with the dread of the future. A lot of people are scared about what it's going to be like tomorrow, next week, in a month, or in a year. And I understand where that's coming from. But all we can do is our best. And this is people not from one side or the other on the political demographic, or the political divide. This is people coming from from any and all polarized places. Or for those who aren't, or they're seeing society rip itself apart, whatever it might be, right? This is something, that dread of the future is not ours to hold and shoulder. We're here to take loving actions and then leave the rest to God. Goes on to say, such love passeth all understanding, bringing in its train infinite patience with man, enduring courage in life, and complete trust in Christ. Again, this is coming from a Christian perspective, so if you don't like the language of the verbiage, I understand. Apply it as needed. But what it's saying here is these characteristics, after you have come into contact and had a spiritual experience with the God of your understanding, and you have this spiritual awakening, and you realize you're not the center of the world, suddenly you find patience with your fellow man. Suddenly you find courage to live life regardless of situation or circumstance, past, present, or future. And you have a complete faith to walk forward and take the right actions. Regardless of what you believe will serve you best or not, you do what will serve the God of your understanding best. These are traits we all strive for. These are all traits we want, right? We try to self-will and force ourselves to be patient. All we do is become irritated most of the time, right? We try to walk in faith, but then we get selfish and we're like, well, God would want me to have this. Well, I don't think that's really a statement God says. And we having courage to take the right actions, having courage to speak up when wrong is presented to us, having the courage to be steadfast in your commitment to absolute love and honesty and purity and truth and unselfishness, right? Having the courage to walk in this life and walk in faith and a knowing that what is going on is much bigger than you. That's a little bit scary to some of us that have thought we were the center of the world for a long time. But when we get there, everything changes. To act in faith with complete confidence is such a powerful way to actually carry yourself through life. It's such a powerful way to actually be, because you need no reassurance. It's the solution to people with codependency and attachment issues. This is the solution to those who are suffering immeasurable amounts of grief in their life. This is a solution to those who are in constant fear of this world and this future, right? This is for those who have so many regrets. Walk in faith and with complete confidence, knowing that the absolute love from the God of your understanding will carry you to the place you should be. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And then I wanted to close with this. If we could love God with a fraction of the love God has for us, our eyes would be open to a new vision, not only for ourselves, but for all mankind. And that's what we're getting towards here. We have to stop being so stinking selfish, saying, God, what's your plan for me? What's your vision for me? How magnificent, how popular and famous am I going to be? How rich am I going to be, right? If we bring just a fraction of the love that God has for us, that energy, the world, this source, this universe has for us, and we bring that back to it, our eyes will be open to a whole new way of living and seeing this world and being able to develop in this world, one that we didn't know was even possible. At least I didn't even know was possible. And we have that faith that God can do so much more for us and for this world with us than we could have ever contemplated or believed on our own. We couldn't even conceptualize it. It's such a powerful, powerful place to be when you align yourself with absolute love and take the loving action as much as possible in your life. And there we go. So that is the first page and a half of Absolute Love from What is the Oxford Group. And the last of the four absolutes that we're covering. Incredible, absolutely almost overwhelming with the message from this chapter, and something I am so grateful to be able to experience with you guys again and to be able to have this conversation. So I am looking forward to next week and digging through this, the rest of the chapter. I'm not sure if it's going to be a 1, 2, and 3 for this, because even though I've read it, studying it and tearing it apart expands it so much more. So I don't know if we might have 4 sections to this one. I don't know if they're all as jam-packed as that one. So we will see. But thank you all so much for the likes and the support. Follow me on YouTube, Spotify. There's a Facebook. There's a X account. There is a TikTok, Instagram, whatever. We're also on Apple Podcasts too. So I do appreciate the growth this channel's seen. And I hope it's been of service to you today. So thank you all so much. Until next time. Thanks.